can't just come to you and start disputing your religious beliefs. I believe this is what is happening to me. And, beliefs are really strong rooted. So mostly what we do is psychologists when we are dealing with such cases, right? Number one, a psychoeducation, right? Education is very, very important. Mental illness is defined by the society, Nyenge. So the society is the one that defines this is normal, this is abnormal. I can give you an example. For example, now our society, we expect it to be dressed, right?
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Moments with Nyengeterai. I'm so excited to have you here with me. Thank you to those who've joined the community, to those who are here but have not joined the community yet. Please go and subscribe so that you can just continue to help us grow in numbers. But I just want to say thank you for the support, the emails, the messages. We are loving them. And they're actually helping us to find the guests that you want, the topics that you want us to discuss. And lately, we've had a lot of people asking us to talk about this topic that we're talking about today. So before I go any further, I first want to introduce our guest. Sibo, welcome.
Thank you, Nyenge. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So I just want our viewers to know who Sibo is and what you do. And yeah, just introduce yourself so that everyone gets to know who you are.
Okay, thank you, Nyenge. So basically, who am I? Okay, Sibo is, I like to define myself as a hardworking young lady. Sibo is a sister. Sibo is a wife. Sibo is a daughter. And also Sibo is a lecturer, a university lecturer. And also is an MBTI practitioner. Sibo is also...
What is MBTI?
MBTI.
For those who don't know.
Okay, so MBTI is a psychometric test. So I'm certified to administer that psychometric test. It's a personality test in terms of how different people differ in terms of personality. And more so, Sibo is a mental health advocate. And also, I'm a registered and licensed clinical psychologist here in Zimbabwe and practicing currently.
Oh, fantastic. So that's great, because then we'll just get into the topic that we want to talk about. But before we get there, I just want to ask you, Sibo, why did you decide to study to become
clinical psychologist?
Yes.
You know what's funny, actually? Do you know that I never knew there's a profession called clinical psychologist until I was about 19 years old. So growing up, I never wanted to be one because I never knew there was a clinical psychologist. I wasn't really aware of mental illness growing up. You know what? Now going back, Nyenge, I grew up in a very small township of Victoria Falls. So Sibo is a small town girl who came to the big city with these big dreams and aspirations and so forth. So growing up in my community, there used to be a lady. She was mentally ill, and because when we were growing up, right, it wasn't really addressed as a medical condition or something. We all had theories, like everyone like, hi, you know what? This is what happened to her. She was bewitched. Everyone had sort of like this theory. Like it never occurred to me that this was actually an illness, like in terms of the medical illness altogether. So as I was growing up, right, I wanted to be a lawyer because of the exposure that I had. So I never knew you could be a psychologist. I never knew that lady could actually go to the hospital, get help, take a medication and so forth and be okay. So when I came to Harare, I was 19 years. I was applying for my university, right? So obviously there was a girl who was next door to my house. She's like, you know what, I want to go. I'm going to study psychology at the university. And like, what's that? Then she started talking. I wasn't really interested because already I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be
a lawyer
because this is what I know and this is what I want. So come applications, the university gives you these 3 options whereby you have to apply. So firstly, I wrote law. And I never knew I didn't even know what to write on the next 2 slots. But because I heard they're saying psychology, okay, so I just wrote psychology as my second option because they said you can't leave this blank, you see. So I had to write something. So fast forward, I had 17 points actually in A level.
Wow.
Yes.
Are you one of those that wrote 4 subjects?
Yes.
I don't get it. I don't get it. But well done.
Yeah. So I wrote 4, then I got 17 points. So I was very, very confident that I'm going to be admitted into the law school. And then to my surprise, they gave me the second option, psychology. So then I'm getting home. I'm like, you know what? They didn't give me law. They gave me the psychology. I don't even have an idea of what this is at all. So my friend's like, you know what? Maybe just go do the psychology and maybe just try change to law later on. So I started doing the psychology, but it's not something that I never knew about it. But then I found it very, very interesting. I found it that it's like, this is about mental health, right? A topic that is affecting us every day without even us knowing and realizing it, because we're not, number one is Africans, mental health, it's a taboo topic, you understand? And you can't be mentally ill, and you can't be going through depression. What's that? If you're a child, that's, you know. So it was really something that caught my interest. But then, I got to varsity, I finished my degree. So back then, when I finished this degree, the psychology undergrad degree, there was no master's in clinical psychology here in Zimbabwe. So for you to be a clinical psychologist, you're supposed to go to a government institution, do 3 years internship. And also during that time, the internship wasn't paid, basically. So you're supposed to do the 3 years before you then register as a clinical psychologist. And here is the young Sibo, you just out of varsity, you need to make a living.
Pay bills.
Pay bills. And yeah, so what then happened is, it just so happened, I was now in the process of like, you know what, because I was busy applying for a job, not getting a job. And like, you know what, so let me just pursue my passion and I'll see how it goes. So as I was busy applying, and then it so happened that I then got a job, as an HR job. So I had to ditch the whole thing because I needed the money. I couldn't. I have 3 years of not getting paid at all. So I went into HR and I was very happy, but still something was missing, right? And I was really doing very well. Like in 2020, I think I was at the peak of my career as an HR. I was now an HR consultant, in various industries, medical, commercial, insurance, construction industry. And then COVID hit. Then and I was still working during COVID. Just 2020 August, I got a call from the chairperson of the department, like at the University of Zimbabwe. Like, we're introducing a master's program in clinical psychology. Would we be interested? But this is like a full-time program, right? Then I'm like, but I'm already in HR. Means the most likely, if I'm to pursue a master's, it'll be industrial psychology, not clinical psychology. So like, you know what, I applied, then I went through the process, then I got admitted to do the master's. Then I had to resign and stop doing HR work, for which everyone was really shocked. Say, well, are you really sure? So are you just going to stop like you working all together and focus on getting this master's in clinical psychology? Like, no, guys, this is what I want. This is what I've always wanted. So why not do it? So yeah, that's when I then went through the master's. And then after the master's, I then went through my placement at Harare Hospital. And then I did my internship at Annex. And then, finally, I'm now a qualified clinical psychologist.
Wow. But you know what? As you're talking, I know you and HR, first of all, you're supposed to be a lawyer. And then you went and did psychology. Then you went into HR. Don't you think that there is like a connection between all these careers anyway? Because you're dealing with people, a lawyer is dealing with people, a psychologist, and HR don't you think that there is a connection somewhere, and maybe that's the reason why you are where you are?
Now thinking about it now, like recently I was having a conversation with someone and like, Sibo, you actually have, I don't know, a greater advantage in everything. You're well versed in HR and now clinical psychology, and also in HR, I did a few diplomas in legal work. So definitely there is a link, because looking at what I am doing now, so what I'm basically doing now, I'm doing I've got a consultancy, a private consultancy with I've got business partners. So we're basically looking at learning and development solutions, and then we're also looking at the psychometric assessments, and then at the same time we're also providing mental health services, which means we also provide counseling to employees and also to individuals and so forth. So there is a link, because when I'm going to an organization, I've been in HR, so I really understand what I'm talking about. When I'm saying, employees need A, B, C, D, and this is important, I'm talking from a background of understanding, because I've been there before.
Oh, wow. That is really, that's very, very interesting. So coming to the topic on why I thought we should have this conversation, we've had a lot of people inboxing us. We've had other people coming to talk about mental health, but I'm finding now it's more where people are calling and sending messages and saying, please, we need more discussions around mental health, because some people don't recognize that they actually have an issue or problem, or some people think it's just, it's just who I am. Can you take me through what mental health is in a nutshell, and what people should look out for, and how people should get treated and the processes and things like that?
Okay, Nyenge. So, when it comes to mental health is a very broad topic altogether. But obviously, as we're talking now, like what I said before, in Africa, we're slowly embracing those mental health issues and so forth, and people are slowly seeking help for it. But before, people never really used to acknowledge mental health. People, even now, Nyenge, I can tell you, using my practicing experience, I get people that come, they are not mentally well, either they are relatives but they don't believe that it's mental illness. They will tell you that, this Ningi, maybe this uncle is causing this. People still they haven't really accepted it. They'll tell you, no, this one is not you. That's the major problem that you have. People not taking their medication because they don't believe that this is medical. They believe, no, what they're going through is actually spiritual, or there's witchcraft, or they need to go consult with the prophets. They need to go consult with the witch doctors, because they really don't believe in us saying, you need to take your medication daily for you to be well. So it's still a very, very difficult and a crucial thing that we still need to address and talk about when it comes to mental health.
When you just said that, I'm thinking, do you think, is there a way, I don't know how, mental health practitioners can get into the church? Because like you're talking, a lot of people will be like, oh, let's pray over it. I'm a Christian, but I know the importance of therapy. But how do you then discuss it? Especially, I think, with the leaders in the church, to say some of these things, we can't just pray about it and just push it under the cupboard. We need to, how would you approach that? And how do you think you can work with the church, And then also, I don't know, how do we change thought process? Yeah, like people just say, because everything is about bewitching, and, how from a psychological background, what can we do?
I think what I've realized when I'm dealing with my patients and my clients, remember, like what you're saying, you are a Christian. So if you come to me and I know this, what Nyenge is going through is medical, Nyenge is having this problem and so forth, right? But then I can't at your face dispute that, because once I start doing that, I then lose you altogether as a client or as a patient. Remember, someone can't just come to you and start disputing your religious beliefs. I believe this is what is happening to me. And, beliefs are really strong rooted. So mostly what we do as psychologists when we are dealing with such cases, right? Number one, a psychoeducation, right? Education is very, very important. And I feel this education is now a universal. We all need to come together and educate each other about what is mental health, right? Mental health is illness, right? Illness, it's mental illness. It's just like any other illness, like your hypertension, your high blood pressure, your diabetes and so forth, right? And also mental health is, most of this is genetic, right? So that's why you see most of the times when you come, the first time when you come to therapy, we ask you, is there anyone in your family who has ever had any mental health illness?
Right? But what if they don't know? Because maybe until I go, this one, I know Binka, or this one, she beats too much. I mean, it's only now that, because I've been working a lot in this, now that I understand that, I think this one had mental health. So for someone who doesn't know, how do you ask them so that our viewers as well can maybe also look and see if they have those mental health issues in their families? Because maybe people don't know how to recognize that this could be a mental health. How would you discuss with your patient?
Okay, so maybe coming to what you've just asked, right? Mental illness is defined by the society, Nyengi. So the society is the one that defines this is normal, this is abnormal. I can give you an example. For example, now our society, we expect it to be dressed, right? Then suddenly if we see Nyengi going on the streets naked, that's abnormal, right? So the society basically defines what is abnormal, what is not abnormal, right? If we expect Nyenge to be behaving in a certain way, because Nyenge knows that I'm supposed to be behaving in a certain way, and once Nyenge is not behaving in that way, that's abnormal. That's abnormality, that's mental illness. But maybe we can talk about the common mental health illness that people see every day and that people talk about. For example, depression. Depression, depression, it's the major depression disorder, right? So depression is one of the most, I don't know, I often hear people, I'm depressed, right? Okay, so it's one of the most common, right? You're probably reacting to something has happened in your life. In our day-to-day living, people go through a lot, right? So there are some of the symptoms that you can recognize when someone is going through a depression phase, right? For example, that person, they start isolating self, even from your friends. You suddenly notice, Ningi is suddenly becoming distant from everyone. You're isolating self. You've got prolonged periods of sadness, right? Like you're just feeling sad, but you can't even pinpoint what's happening, but you're just feeling sad. Some, they then lose their appetite. They are not eating. I know if I bring food here to the table, Yenge is the first one to say Sibo this, but suddenly Yenge, or even if it's your child, they're not eating, right? Or suddenly they are overeating. That's also a sign of depression. To say what has changed now suddenly, and also because they're not eating, they start losing weight, maybe such that everyone is noticing it. To say, what, something is really happening to Nyengi. What is happening to this person? And at times they always closed in their rooms, sleeping a lot, right? Or at times you get to bed, you can't fall asleep because there is a lot going through your mind. So, and also one of the symptoms of depression is also suicidality. The person just doesn't have the desire to live anymore. They're having thoughts, I'm better off dead than alive, and they're just so hopeless about the future. If you ask that person, so how do you feel about tomorrow? They're just so hopeless. So those are some of the most common symptoms of depression. Some you can see them like from the change in behavior, of course, and then some, of course, you need to inquire about the person. So that's those are some of the things that our viewers or anyone, you can just notice from your loved ones to say, what, this has been happening to you. Why don't you seek help? What's happening and so forth.
What about anger? People with, I don't know, because somehow I think, I don't know, I just think that I don't know how to describe it, but where you have people within maybe the family, but they've got a certain trait, but people look at it as if it's normal. What are some of the traits that look normal, but are actually could be mental issues? And leading on to that, childhood issues, things that could have happened to us when we were kids, that manifest themselves when we are adults, or the way we maybe parent and behave with other people. What are those kind of things that can come out as maybe trauma later on that needs help?
Okay, so Nyenge, actually most people they actually suffering from their child, whatever happened in their childhood. There's this thing called generational trauma. I don't know if you've heard.
Yes, I actually want us to talk about that.
Yes. So you know what generational trauma is? The trauma that we carry, that someone carries, right? Not that they might have experienced it themselves. They won't have the flashbacks because they didn't experience, but it's because maybe their grandparents experienced trauma, and that trauma was passed on to their mother, and there is now being passed on to them. Let me explain how this happens, right? Let's say, for example, your grandmother was raised in an abusive environment, and they're constantly having anger outbursts, right? Because obviously your grandmother never went through healing herself. So she's likely to pass that trauma to the mother, right? How? Through the raising of the child. You know how they say parenting is very important, and it plays a very paramount or pivotal role in a person's life, right? And also through how we parent, we're parenting based on whatever that we experienced as people. So imagine this grandmother, abusive marriage, maybe abusive childhood. Now they're trying to raise this little girl also. Imagine how they're raising that. They're probably transferring all that trauma to that child, right? And then the child, because that mother now, this is the only way that she knows how to parent. So she has a daughter now. She's raising this daughter the same way. So imagine now it's now a generation of traumas. No one is in the cycle is actually taking time to heal from that trauma. So it's just continuous being passed on from this person to this person. That's why you hear people say, you know what, my grandmother is toxic, my mother is toxic. Then people wonder, yeah, what are you talking about? Because it's through the mother won't probably be realizing this is what is happening to her. It's normal because this is what she knows. This is how she's been raised to. And this is what she carries also. So it's a normal. So if this person doesn't seek help, it continues. They have their own child, and the cycle just continues of toxic relationships, toxic parenting, toxic person. But then if you then a victim of that also, imagine you're now in a what sort of a person are you in a society? Like even in relationships, you get married, what then happens? You're projecting all that trauma and so forth. So it's still a cycle that if it's not broken, it will still continue from one generation to the next to the next. It's not trauma that you experienced at first end, but this is trauma that has been passed from one person to the next.
So if you haven't been able to identify it, how do we break generational trauma? If maybe people are moving around wounded and they are bleeding all over other people, but they themselves have not recognized that I actually need help or I need, how do we break generational trauma?
You know what, Nyenge? Actually, I would take, like is it 2 weeks back, I was listening to some radio station. And you know what, those programs where people then write to seek advice. So there's this man, right, who is writing, he's saying that, you know what, I grew up in a very abusive environment, right? And then I grew up, right? My father was very abusive to my mother, and I was witnessing all that, right? I thought I was okay. It didn't affect me, obviously. Then I had to grow up, become my own man, right? Get married, right? And now my wife has left me, and because of what I've been abusing my wife, he's now realizing that, you know what, actually, I think there is something really wrong with me. It might not be immediate, but eventually you notice the certain toxic traits that you carry around people to say, you know what, my wife has left me now, right? But now thinking back, I think this is what has been happening to me. So then people are suggesting things, you know what, seek help, seek professional help. So it won't really happen ipapo, right? But people would later on realize to say, you know what, I've got these toxic traits, where did they come from? So that's why even when you come for therapy, we need to understand your childhood. It's very important. How did you grow up? How was the environment like? Just describe your childhood in your own words. Because most people, we're suffering because of whatever things that happen in our childhood. We might have viewed them as normal, right? Because normal, like, is defined by where you stay, the environment. So if I grew up and this was what was happening in my home every day, this is my normal, right? But then you realize to the greater society that it's, you know what, this is abnormal. Like what I said, illness is then defined by the larger community to say, you know what, this is abnormal. This is not how things should happen. This is not how things should happen and so forth. So it might not be immediate that you know that I'm a toxic person. But then if you take time to reflect, or maybe you might be hearing from other people, say, you know what, check even your friendships, this has been happening. And also you will realize it's the same cycle, it's the same trend that has been happening. So definitely, and I'm the common denominator there, means there is something really wrong.
Mm-hmm. And what about kids who witness, like you're talking about that guy who grew up seeing his mom or his father beating up his mom. When the kids are that young, how do we reach out to them? What's the best way to reach out? Because I can imagine what will be going on in their heads. From your perspective, from your clinical background, what would be the best thing to do for a mother or maybe who's being abused, and they can see that their kids are seeing this, and maybe sometimes even the child has come to try and rescue the mom. What should the mother also do in terms of preparing these kids, so that they don't maybe fall into the same trait? Or
okay, Nyenge, so there's no harm in seeking help for your children. Like if you're a mother and you're really aware, this is the environment that I've been exposing my kids to. Definitely, I'm sure, not even without you even noticing or saying this is the environment that I've raised my kids in, you will notice the behavior trace of those kids, right? Because kids learn by watching, right? Number one. So either they will then start imitating the same behavior to other kids. In a school, they'll start complaining or they withdraw. Like even academically, this was a child who was doing very well. Then suddenly their grades are starting to drop. Or even socially, or even if it's still a developing child, they start regressing even their developmental milestones. So it's really, really so visible. So that's why there are child psychologists or counselors at schools, if they are there. If they are not there, just seek help for your child. Because there are some events that happen and that we as parents, we then tend to normalize to say, you know what, it's okay. But you don't know how much impact that has actually affected your child. And this child is going to carry that and grow up and be this person in society with that carrying the same trauma. So imagine what generation we're then raising her, what children we're raising in that society and context. So seeking help is very, very important.
But what about from a family perspective? Maybe I've decided to go for therapy. Right? I've gone for therapy. I'm good. But this toxic parent, relative are still around. They're still around me. How then do we put, what do we do? Because I promise you, I think it's something that's really, people are saying, okay, even I want to go for therapy. I want to go for treatment. But this person is still in my life. And it's someone like my mom. There's no way I can get rid of them. Or my dad, or a very close relative, or my sister, my sibling. So how do we navigate? I'm the healed one. How do I navigate all these unhealed people around me?
First and foremost, when you go through therapy yourself, remember therapy is just focusing on you as a person. Because therapy, we're focusing on what you can control and which is basically you can control yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, and so forth. You don't have control over the next person. So because you're now a youth person, right? So there are certain, you now know how to react and behave. That's what therapy is all about. Say this, if this toxic is, if it's your mother, is still going to be there. If, either you need to set boundaries and say, you know what, mama, this is what is happening and so forth, right? Nicely, obviously. But because you have been taught how to control yourself, how to handle things. So it's how you're now going to relate with this person is now going to be a different story altogether. You have been empowered mentally, if I may say that. So that's the whole purpose of therapy. Like in this context, they say, you know what, Nyenge, you don't have control over this person. Get that into your mind. This is step number one. This is very important. So whatever this person does, it's not about you, it's about them. So once you start viewing things that way, then it becomes what? It becomes better. Because I know that this person is behaving this way, but this is not because I did anything wrong, or this is not because of me, but it's because of this next person. And unfortunately, I can't control the next person, but I can only control myself. I can control my thoughts, my feelings, and my behavior, which is what we basically focus on in therapy. We can't focus on the next person. They are not there, and they are not who don't know. Because therapy, you have to be willing to change. So if they say, come and like, you know what, I'm not going to change. I'm going to remain who I am. So what then happens to you? Which is what we focus on. This is the most important. So therapy is not about being controlling the next person, because you can't. It's about then how to handle the situation and still remain mentally sane and know that, you know what, whatever is happening, this is not about me. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not this, I'm not this, but it's whatever this person is dealing with, which has got nothing to do with me, which is what people need to understand.
Sure. Yeah, that is very, very interesting that it's you have to control, you can only control their environment. I'm just thinking, and I'm going back to the toxic environment in the evening, and this person maybe will make me cry. Eventually, how long do you see a person, like normal sessions, to say, on average, it will take you 10, 20 sessions for you to actually start changing? Because I don't believe people just change just like that. I mean, we're human. We struggle to even just go to the gym to be consistent. How long do you usually see, especially people healing from childhood traumas? How long does it take on average? I know people are different, but just a ballpark figure, because I think people out, my viewers would be scared to say, I don't want to be seeing Sibo for the next 2 years, or whatever. But generally to see a change, how long does it take?
So, Yenge, I can't really say their durations because people are different, right? Mm-hmm. But like what I'm saying, it's a continuous process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over a year, over, it's continuous. So I can't really come up with timelines. But different people, or maybe you might be feeling comfortable to say, you know what, I think right now with the sessions that you have had, I'm not 100%, but I think I can handle this situation and maybe I can do this. So I can't really say you need this period for sessions. It all depends on whatever is happening and so forth, but I can't give a duration of that. Mm. And then also when it comes to what you said about the environment, at times also as a person, you then need to choose your mental health, right? If that same environment is being toxic, you can pick your bets and go, right? You can't, it's your mental health over everything. If it's toxic, leave and go. Don't just stay there and think you don't have options because of A, B, C, D. If it's affecting your mental health and you can do something about it, pick your bets and go.
That's what, how difficult that is, especially, let's talk marriages, actually.
Yeah.
Because in African culture, you know how it is. Marriage is hard. I
know.
People are being beaten. What do we then, how do we advise people who are in these? Because they're staying there, but maybe in the process of staying there, they are being beaten up. Maybe they're even getting illnesses. Maybe they're, what would you say to people like that? And where do they even start? Because maybe if I leave and I come home, my parents are like, it's okay, that marriage is hard. how should people navigate those waters, and where should they be reaching out? Who should they be reaching out to?
You know what, Nyenge? Actually, I had a client. I've met clients, right? They are married and they're in these toxic relationships, and it's now affecting their mental health. Either they're now on antidepressants, but they're still holding on into that marriage. Of course, they'll be having valid reasons. You know what? If I leave this marriage, number one, maybe I'm not. I've got 3 kids already. I'm not even working. I'm not fine. I'm not financially stable. Number one, and also, you know what? Even if I go back home, my parents, financially things are not happening. We don't even. So I'm actually going to be a burden now with 3 more kids, and I'm not. You know what? I have actually met such instances, right? So what we usually do in those situations, right? Number one, of course, like as psychologists, we also work with various stakeholders, right? We've got social workers, right? So, because my main focus is then focusing on your mental health, right? And empowering you. I need to empower you. Remember, as psychologists, I don't give advice. That's number one. I don't give anyone advice, right? And that's not my profession, right? I empower you mentally, right? So I can't say, hey, Nyenge, pick your bags and go, or this. No, that's giving advice. So I empower you, right? And because we believe that you have the power to make your own decisions. So once we empower you, you can maybe have a different view of how you see things. If there are any other issues that are beyond our scope of practice or control, we refer. For example, if there are children involved, if there's GBV involved, right? We refer a social worker to look at all those things. But our main purpose is just to empower you mentally, because we believe once we empower you, they'll start seeing things differently, to say, you know what, but then there is a way out of this. Because most of the times when people have went through mental health issues, people, like what I said, hopelessness is one of the symptoms. They don't see any way out. To them, this is black, this is white. To stay in this marriage, and there's no way. If I leave this marriage, that's the end of me, right? So by going through therapy, right, we try to empower them to say that there might be A, B, and there might be C, there might be D. Of course, it's not going to be instant, but this is what, and this is your mental health, this is important, and so forth. So basically, this is what we'll be focusing on. If it's out of our scope, we refer you. We've got a social worker. We can assist you with the children, right? In terms of, they'll tell you everything that's involved. If you think maybe this man is not going to maintain the kids, this is the process, or get empowered, or we've got the occupational therapist. They teach you things to do with your own hands, and you also get empowered. Besides being empowered mentally, also empowered in other avenues. Just at the end of the day, when you pick your bags and you're like, you know what, I'm leaving. This is what is happening.
And well, so you know what? We could go on. I've got so many questions, but I just want for you to just give me 5 key things, lessons that you have learned from becoming a therapist in terms of helping our viewers out there. Just 5 key things maybe they should look out for, 5 key things they should do, any 5 key lessons from your practice.
Okay, Nyenge. The first one is, mental illness can happen to anyone. The next moment you're talking to someone, they're fine, and then the next moment this person is not fine. So there's no exception. This can happen to anyone, just like having high blood pressure or anything. That's one thing that people should know. Despite gender, age, race, whatever, mental illness it can happen to anyone. And also, number 2, seek help. That's what I've. And also, like in our families, let's also, like if you are raising children, let's normalize talking about these things openly, and let's because what I've noticed most of the times why people are suffering in silence is because of the stigma that is attached to mental illness, right? So there's still a lot of stigma in our society. I know people are like, you know what? Mental illness. And also people still think, this is for the rich or for the white. But mental illness is for everyone. So prioritize your mental health if you can. And if you can't, just find someone that you can confide in, like invest in your social circles. I've noticed they they do help a lot, right? People that you can trust, people that you can confide in, and so forth. And lastly, your mental health matters always. I don't know, but it's 5.
Wow, 4, but it is 5.
It matters always.
Oh, that's good. So just to close us off, I've got some fun questions for you. What's your favorite color and why?
Color? Black.
Black. Oh, okay, why black?
Because I think it just suits me in clothes when I'm wearing it. That's what I like.
Okay, and your favorite animal and why?
Butterfly.
Butterfly. Why?
It's beautiful.
Okay. And what are you currently reading?
What am I currently reading? I'm reading so many things. But mostly I'm reading academic stuff. Yeah, I'm reading lots of journals and academic. And whenever it's specific that I'm reading.
What's your all-time favorite movie that you've watched? Oh, wow. Okay. If this was your last day on Earth and you're about to transcend to your next, what is the one thing that you wish that you would die and say, sure, I can die because I've done?
I wish today because I've done what? Nothing that I can think of.
Nothing. There's nothing that you're dying to make sure you do before.
Of course, I have my PhD. Yeah.
Your PhD.
Yeah.
Okay. So be Dr. Sibo.
Yeah.
Okay. We will hold you to that.
Yeah.
We're going to call you back when you're Dr. Sibo.
Yeah.
We are packing our bags and we are going to the airport. Where are we traveling to?
Maldives.
You see how he's laughing. And I think we actually said when we were recording last time, we said, I think we need to do a group trip
to the Maldives.
Because anybody wants to go to the Maldives. Yeah. So I think we need, it's a sign. It's a sign.
Definitely.
That. Sibo, thank you. So just to close us off, is there something that you just want to tell our viewers? A last thing that you just, and then we just close.
Okay, maybe I just want to tell them that, you know what, your mental health matters always. Seek professional help, and it's never too late. And just know that you never are alone, and everything depends on you. And you've got the power to change whatever that you want to change.
Fantastic. Sibo, thank you so much. Our viewers, thank you so much. I hope you found this insightful. And if you have any more questions that you want, please send them, and then we'll make sure that we'll give you all the information that you need. Otherwise, have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.